times. Also, our feature race will be the Williamson Memorial Stake. But first, here's Stan Bergstein explaining all about the morning line.
When you pick up your past performance program or your newspaper, before the races start and before the betting windows open, there are odds on the program and in the newspaper. How do they get there? Well, they're known as the morning line for obvious reasons. They used to be made in the morning before the races. And they are made by people who are experts at handicapping. People like Charlie Singer, who is with me right now, and who is a morning line maker. And the first question that I have for you, Charlie, is one of philosophy. Does the morning line represent what you think the horses will go off at post time, or what you think they should go off at post time?
The morning line should reflect what the odds will be at post time as reflected on the tote board. You're supposed to give a guideline of what price the bettor can expect rather than tempering it with your own opinion of the races. I read proof every morning from the horses' eligibility certificates, which contains all their past races, including what odds they've been going off at in past races and what their current form is. Who the drivers will be is very important, especially at this racetrack, and the post positions. And from that, you add that all together in a mishmash and you come up with a figure.
Speaking of adding it all together with a mishmash, I've heard many times, and others have in racing, of a balanced book. Do you want to explain briefly what that is in a morning line?
Well, the odds are based on parimutuel percentages. And if you look at the actual odds after the race, they'll always add up to a certain number. We usually go by about 125. In other words, 4 to 1 is 20 points, a division of 1 into 5. And the odds always have to balance. In other words, if you have a few horses that are heavily favored, 8 to 5 or so, to balance it out, you always have to have your 30, 40, and 50 to 1 shots.
Which reflects realism, of course, on the board.
Right. Some tracks I've been to, you'll have, you know, a lot of horses 3, 4, 5, 6 to 1, and it throws the public off because they have every horse as, you know, relative favorite with none of the balance in there. You definitely have to have your long shots. Sometimes you have to be brave and painful to make a horse very long if he doesn't belong in the race or is non-competitive.
Conversely, what if he stands out? Do you have any aversion to making a horse an odds-on favorite if you figure he's going to be?
Not really. I'm a little conservative. A few years ago, we had a night here where I made a horse 1 to 5 and he got beat. And next race, 3 Diamonds came out on the racetrack, champion filly. She was 1 to 5 and got beat. They actually went off at 1 to 5 or even 1 to 10, so I felt justified. But after that, I think the lowest I'll go is 3 or 4 to 5, even on nitrous.
If it's any consolation, even experts like Charlie Singer, morning line maker, occasionally are wrong. But most of the time they're right, and the morning line odds that you see on the tote board, in the newspapers, in your past performance program, come from one expert's judgment. Charlie Singer is typical of them, but there's a Charlie Singer at every racetrack.
Well, it was stakes and fast track action all over the place last weekend. We'll go first to Fredericton Raceway, the Atlantic Sires Stakes for 2-year-old trotters, and once again it was Jenny Ayres 2:07.2, a half-mile track record for her age, gait, and sex. And the quickest mile at Fredericton Precious Windy 2:01.4. At Truro, Cash Conscious in 2:05, and over to Charlottetown for Laser in 2:04.1. Jenny Ayres right back at Champlain Raceway 2:06.2, and that set a whole flock of maritime and stakes records. Rumpus Hanover 2 minutes and 1/5, also a quick mile, and that's a 2-year-old. Our top drivers at Fredericton, 2 wins each for Steve Mahar and Doug Walsh. At Charlottetown, 2 wins each for Albert Bernard. He did that twice. 2 wins each for Gary McDonald, Vince Polton, and Bill Hicken. At Champlain Raceway, Dave Carey had back-to-back driving doubles. Then it was Phil Pinckney, Mike Downey, and Paul Bro coming up with 2 doubles each. Well, a big mile coming up at Champlain Raceway on last Saturday night, a maritime record for 3-year-old pacers. It was Rev Your Engine, and here's the last part of that race.
Killer Lobo moving 3 1/2, 56.2. They're on the back stretch for the final time. Out in front, the leader is still Rev Your Engine by 2 lengths. Angel Shadow driving into Killer Lobo racing 3. Ajo on the outside, moving 4. In along the rail, Spike It Hard is racing 5 as they swing to the turn. Rev Your Engine now a 1.25 lengths. Angel Shadow is still second. They go to the turn. Race on by the 3/4. 3/4. Rev your engine. 1:25 3/5 seconds. Rev your engine. A length and a half. Angel Shadow is driving second round the turn. Just the two of them as they come to the 7/8. Rev your engine and Angel Shadow by the 7/8. They drive on home. Rev your engine now. Angel Shadow up on the outside. Rev your engine, Angel Shadow. Rev your engine. Angel Shadow is coming on. Rev your engine and Angel Shadow. Rev your engine at the wire is going to be. Rev your engine. 1:56 2.
Well, the last event before Fredericton Raceway closed for 1 week was the Williamson stake race for 2-year-old pacers. The first division for $7,532, a non-wagering event to Christmas Crunch, a new mark of 2:05 3. And a big mile came up in the wagering sector of that race. Rick Grant has the story.
The Williamson stake was the 12th race of the night. 9 horses were entered for the $7,532 purse. Driving number 1, Utis Smoky, was Steve Mahar. The 2-year-old colt is owned by Willard Jenkins of St. John. Number 2, Overnight Storm, was driven by Phil Pinky, owners Bert Heyman of Kensington PEI and John Miller of Yarmouth. Number 3, P.H. Bobby, driver Doug Walsh, owner James Shive of Shubenacadie, Nova Scotia. Number 4, Nifty Nero, driver Earl Smith, owner Bert Heyman of Kingston PEI and John Miller of Yarmouth. Number 5, Amazing Cover, driver Jody Hennessy, owner Tom Zakos of St. John. Number 6, Grease Can, driver Danny Romo, owners Paul Gray of Halifax and Burko Stables of Dartmouth. Number 7, P.H. Steve, was driven by Paul Hennessy and owned by James Shive of Shubenacadie. Bets were not allowed on P.H. Steve. Number 8, Charlotte's Night, driver Wayne Rudge, owners David and Darrell Tingley of Sackville, Nova Scotia. Number 9, Island Hostage, driver Walter Cheverie, owned by Lou Joseph Tingley of Moncton. We pick up the race with Fredericton track announcer Gerald Bishop.
Here they come. They're off, and as they leave the wire, it's Utis Smoky and along the rail as they race for that first turn. Overnight Storm moves up 2. Nifty Nero 3 on the outside. Nifty Nero now moves up to be 2. Overnight Storm is in 3 with P.H. Steve 4. P.H. Bobby on the move 5 on the outside. Charlotte's Night is 6. Grease Can is in 7. Amazing Cover is 8. Island Hostage trails as they race by that first quarter. Moving on to the top is Nifty Nero into the barn turn first time round. They were by the quarter 29 1 with Nifty Nero showing the way. Utis Smoky is in 2. Overnight Storm is 3 with P.H. Bobby 4 off the 3/8 heading down the stretch for the half. Nifty Nero shows the way to the half. Utis Smoky is 2. Overnight Storm now up 3 on the outside. P.H. Bobby moves up to be 4. P.H. Steve is in 5. Charlotte's Night is 6. Grease Can is 7. Amazing Cover 8 and Island Hostage 9 by the half. 101 and 1. It's a Nifty Nero as they head up the backstretch for the 3/4. Nifty Nero has that lead. Utis Smoky in 2 along the rail. Overnight Storm 3 on the outside. P.H. Bobby up 4 on the outside. P.H. Steve in 5 along the rail. Charlotte's Night is 6. Amazing Cover 7. Grease Can 8 and Highland Hostage. 3/4 of 132 and 1 with Nifty Nero. Utis Smoky is 2. Overnight Storm in 3. P.H. Steve is 4. P.H. Bobby 5 off the 7/8 heading for home. It's still Nifty Nero. Up on the outside, Utis Smoky brushing on the outside as they come for the wire. It's Nifty Nero and Utis Smoky. It's Utis Smoky. Here they are.
Utis Smoky paid $870 to win, $250 to place, and $240 to show. Nifty Nero paid $220 to place and $250 to show. And Overnight Storm paid $250 to show. The exacta combination of 1 and 4 was worth $23.50, and the Quinella 1 and 4 paid $10.40. With odds of 8 to 5, Nifty Nero was the favorite. At 5 to 2, Overnight Storm was next. But Uda Smokey crossed the line first in a time of 2:02 and 2, setting a personal best and the fastest time for a 2-year-old this year on an Atlantic track.
I drove him in a qualifier once, and he acted pretty good. He's strong. He's not much to him, but he's powerful.
This is the fastest race the horse has run?
Yeah, he's only had a couple of, baby races, more or less. This is his first major race, but he did the job anyway.
It was a tight finish.
Yeah, I couldn't get out over in the turn over there, and I had to wait for the stretch before I got out. And the other horse got a little bit of a jump on me before I got out. But he closed good.
We caught up with owner Willard Jenkins down the track. The surprised owner was so happy he leaped the fence to talk about it.
He thought maybe 4th, 5th, and that's the way it goes. That's what makes it interesting. So, but we're very, very pleased. He's been a nice colt right along, but I never really thought that he was ready to go that fast.
Well, he earned his oats tonight.
Yes, he did. He did, so not hard to jump that fence tonight.
In Fredericton, this is Rick Grant at the track.
The rail is indeed better. On a half-mile track, a horse racing 5 feet from the rail travels 62 feet further than the horse on the rail. And weight does count. The majority of the sport's leading drivers tend to be small and on the light side. And drivers, by the way, are allowed to bet, but only on their own horses. And once a week is considered to be the ideal for a horse to race. We'll be back with more at the track in a moment's time. Very busy weeks are coming up next week at both Truro and Fredericton Raceways. At Truro, they go tomorrow afternoon. That's a change in post time. 1:30 is post on Sunday afternoon. Then on Labor Day, another afternoon program. The feature, the Donnie Turner Memorial Open Stake for 3-year-old pacers. 1:30 is post time. They're going for a purse of in excess of $11,000. That race features Maple Grove Shadow, a stakes and maritime champion. Starting next week as well, Truro switching to a new format. They'll be going Wednesday night, Saturday afternoon, and Sunday afternoon. At Fredericton, it's exhibition week, a doubleheader on Monday afternoon, 1:30, evening at 7:30, Labor Day pace in the afternoon, Capital City pace at night. Wednesday and Thursday are race nights again, 7:30 post time, and the Queen Bee, Bee Farber, the first woman to win a track driving championship, makes a special appearance Thursday night at Fredericton Raceway. Doubleheader Saturday, $3,000 pace in the afternoon, and the Bill Quigg Memorial Stake at night, 1:30, 7:30 post times. Charlottetown Thursday and Saturday, the feature Saturday, the race against MS. At Champlain Raceway, 2-year-old Atlantic Sire Stakes fillies on Tuesday night, a preferred class on Saturday night. Well, one of the oldest, most active men in harness racing is at Fredericton Raceway. He's Chester Eatman, a man who loves the sport, and all those in harness racing love Chester Eatman. Here's the story of Chester Eatman.
Chester Eatman is the oldest harness racing driver in Canada, possibly anywhere. And it's downright amazing that he lived long enough to claim that distinction. But he's just passed his latest physical at the age of 82 and been pronounced in perfect health, despite almost 3/4 of a century of smoking and 37 years of hard drinking. However, he took the pledge over 30 years ago. Chester has fathered 32 children by 2 wives. And although he used to sneak into the racetrack as a boy around 1910 or 11, Chester didn't take up racing until the late 1950s when he bought an old nag for one of his daughters.
It was around about 1958, 59. Then that's how I come to decide to pick up an old horse or deadbeat just as a saddle horse for my daughter. See, that's what I wanted to do. And naturally, after I did get that horse, why, the old blood of racing must have come into me some one way or the other. I started hooking him up and jogging him and enjoying myself, you see. I had a track right on the highway road just completely from my gate on around and to come back to my gate was 1 mile.
The first horse of Chester's never did run, so he traded it for his favorite, Joey's Spirit. That horse and others had to do double duty, helping keep the family fed.
I brought him out, took him up once he was getting ready to race. I had him in the box to race, and I needed him potatoes cultivated. So I took him home, unloaded him right down there on the track, took him home and cultivated potatoes with him. Brought him back, and the race was on the Thursday. Won the race. Didn't go very fast, went around 17, but I won it just the same. I always considered he was too late to plow, so I never bothered plowing with him. But he done everything else. He yarded logs, he even yarded logs, he yarded firewood. He was an all-around horse.
Chester was a bricklayer by trade, but he was hard-pressed with 32 children and bills to spend a lot of money on racing. But somehow he found a little spare money and some time to pursue the sport of kings.
Oh, there's always time for whatever you need to do. You find time. You don't have nobody to set your time for you. You're on your own, you understand, and you find time. You make your own time. You see, you don't go by schedule. If you're an individual that has to be somewhat independent in a way to other people's ideas and wishes, you have to have your own. So therefore, you've got to make them count as near as you can. And I always said like this, if I can get it done today, all right, I'll do it. If I can't get it done, I don't say there would be a tomorrow, but if tomorrow comes, I'll try to do it then. That's the way it is with me.
Harness racing is perilous for young men, and Chester's family and friends worry when he climbs into the sulky, sometimes with good reason.
I had a spill right down yonder there that included 2 men besides myself. They both got their feet broke. My horse went down, and the one horse went over me, and those 2 men come up with their feet broken. I could come up with a scratch. Just a jarred shoulder, that's all.
Does family ever get worried about your riding?
Oh, well, they always did. We were worried about my driving when I was only 40 years, 50 years old. Yes, they always worry. They've seen me have a few dumps, you see, and a few thrill spills. And that's why they worry. Always scared about me getting hurt. And most of my friends are scared that I might get hurt. You understand, they got this idea that naturally, where I'm 82 years of age, I won't heal up quite so fast. I had that leg kicked by a horse out home. I was kicked in the knee by a horse out home. And that was in March. And in September, I was on the bike. I stayed in traction 3 months. In September, I was on the bike driving. And in November, I was dancing here in this hall right here.
But that's all part of the thrill for Chester. However, it's not something he's been able to enjoy this year since he sold his last horse. Chester spent most of his evenings this summer at the track watching others race. He watches from his private table in the Rags and Riches Club, high above the starting gate.
But I got my license. Oh, yes, I have my license to drive anytime I wish to. I'm just training the horse now to get ready to race for exhibition week if possible. I'm just training the horse now again. Then I got a colt to come on in the spring. We'll be bringing him in. Oh, just when we come out of pasture, bring him out of pasture. We'll possibly let him rest up for 3 or 4 weeks and then start him training.
Chester's seen a lot of changes in the track over the years, but the biggest is in the horses and how they race.
It used to be years ago, they'd be Indian file, they'd stretched all along the track, the whole 8 horses would be. Now, Mr. Boy, when they come to the half, you better be moving. They go the mile, they go from wire to wire now.
The years have been kind to Chester, who lived pretty hard before he found his groove on the track. Those years have molded a gentle man who loves to race, but hates to use the whip on a horse. The old bricklayer says you can tell everything you need to know from a horse in a race just from the feel of the reins. In Fredericton, Rick Grant at the track.
We know all about a harness racing program and what the finished product looks like, but the tale of how the program is actually put together is one which has been rarely told. Stan Bergstein back with us. He tells the story of the print shop at a racetrack. Here's Stan.
You take the past performance program pretty much for granted. It's there on the newsstand when you're ready to get it. But somebody has to put it together. Someone has to print it. And we'll show you how that whole process is done right now. It starts with a chart caller who calls the progress of the race into either a tape recorder or to an assistant. Once the race is over, the notes are transcribed onto a chart, which is delivered to the printing division of the program department and entered into a computer. When past performances are needed for future programs, they are retrieved from the computer on a disc. The disc is then placed into a processor.
This takes a while, a few seconds.
And the processor produces a complete camera-ready program page. That page then goes to a stripping table where it is cut or stripped into numerical page sequence for the completed program. That is then placed onto a photography table where a photograph is made and a plate produced for the presses. And once on the press, they roll. As the printed pages emerge from the press, they are gathered and placed on a folding machine. That machine folds the printed page into two. And as they emerge in that form, they are again gathered and placed on a cutting machine, which slices them into two groups, known to printers as signatures. These signatures then go on the stitching machine. And covers are added. The entire program is bound together. The completed program then goes to a trimming machine, which trims them to final size. And they are counted and bundled. And all this time, you thought all you had to do was either study one or stab one. Now you know what goes into the past performance program, and you might have a little better appreciation of the work behind it.
Well, that wraps up another edition of At the Track. We hope you enjoyed our program this afternoon, and again, we are back next Saturday, the same time of 4:30. We'll take a look at Atlantic Post Calls, the only racing newspaper in